If you've been paying attention, I haven't posted a long video, my weekly Wednesday video, in about 2 months. I've been preparing for a federal murder trial. And now that it's over, I'm back. And this week, we're discussing a murder case, a recent California murder case, and confessions. Namely, what happens when a Perkins operation goes too far? And if you're asking yourself, what is a Perkins operation? Well, it's when undercover police officers pose as inmates, get placed in a jail cell in order to extract information out of a suspect. But can that operation go too far? Namely, can police trick you into confessing after you've already asked for a lawyer? Today, we're breaking down a brand new California case that just flipped the script on undercover interrogations. This is People versus Zapata, and is a game changer. But before we go on, I want to thank you for watching me here on YouTube. If you're new, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening to the podcast version of this recording on Audible or Spotify, please give my podcast a 5-star rating. And finally, if you want to support this channel, consider going to shop.lawstash.com and check out some of the merch, including Do Not Arrest This Person t-shirts. Thanks for watching, and let's move on.
Quick message from Law Stash. Are you charged with a crime? Or do you want to know your rights if stopped by police? Watch California attorney Anton Vieltsin discuss legal cases from the Supreme Court, Ninth Circuit, and California state courts on the Law Stash YouTube page. Anton has handled hundreds of federal and state criminal cases, has an in-depth knowledge of the law, and has the best mustache ever. Subscribe to the Law Stash YouTube page. That's LAWSTACHE.
Today we'll be discussing a recent California case, the People versus Zapata, which was filed on February 10th, 2026, and it deals with murder, confessions, and Perkins operations. But first, let's discuss the facts. September 22nd, 2014, Temecula, California. Mr. Triplet is shot 11 times in the doorway of his apartment. Multiple witnesses hear gunshots. Police find 9 bullet casings, all fired from the same gun, a .40 caliber Smith & Wesson. The police suspect Mr. Zapata, and here's why. Mr. Zapata purchased exact same gun 3 days prior to the murder, and the same brand of bullets that he purchased are also found all over the scene. But here's the problem. No direct evidence, so the police wait. 1 year later, while Zapata is in custody on unrelated charges, they launch what's called a Perkins operation. For those that don't know, here's what Perkins operation is. This is when undercover police officers posing as inmates get placed inside a jail cell in order to extract information out of a suspect. The key legal point: because the suspect doesn't know they're talking to the cops, there's no police-dominated atmosphere, and so Miranda warnings don't apply. If you think this sounds clever, let's wait and move on. September 2015, deputies place Zapata in a holding cell with 2 undercover agents posing as inmates. The cell is bugged. The deputies are monitoring everything. For over 3 hours, the undercover agents question Zapata about the murder. At first, he denies everything. But here's where it gets interesting. About halfway through, the deputy pulls Mr. Zapata out of the cell for a fake lineup. He tells Mr. Zapata that a witness has identified him as the killer. Now Zapata is getting worried. The deputy asks if he wants to discuss the murder. And this is the critical moment. Mr. Zapata invokes his right to counsel. He says he wants a lawyer before any further questioning. Under Miranda, in a case called Edward versus Arizona, this should be it. Game over. Police can't question him further without a lawyer present. But that's not what happens. Instead of providing a lawyer, the deputy pulls Zapata back into the cell with undercover agents. And as he does this, he announces loud enough for the undercover agents inside to hear to Mr. Zapata, and here's what he says: "You're being charged with murder." The undercover agents hear this. They immediately start pressing Mr. Zapata about the murder charge. And eventually, Zapata cracks. He admits to killing Triplet. He discusses using the .40 caliber weapon, shooting Triplet 10 times, ditching the gun, reporting it stolen, and the whole thing to the agents. Let's fast forward to 2023. Nearly a decade after the murder, Zapata goes to trial. His attorney moves to exclude the confession, arguing it violated Miranda. The trial court denies the motion and admits the recording. The prosecution plays Zapata's confession to the jury. They also present testimony from a witness, and because this witness was underage at the time, they go only by initials, RM, who claimed that she saw the shooting, but then later at trial she recanted. The jury finds Zapata not guilty of the first-degree murder, but instead guilty of the second-degree murder. He's sentenced 15 years to life and an additional 10 years for the use of a firearm. Zapata appeals, arguing that his confession should have never been admitted at trial. So here's the question. When the suspect invokes the right to counsel during the Perkins operation, and a known police officer then stimulates the conversation in a way designed for the suspect to confess to undercover agents, does this violate Miranda? So let's talk about 4 major cases. Miranda versus Arizona, which stands for the proposition that you have a right to remain silent. You have the right to an attorney, and if you invoke these rights, police must stop questioning you. Now, Miranda applies during custodial interrogation. So you have to be in custody, meaning not free to leave, and being interrogated. Interrogated means that the officers are eliciting incriminating statements from you. Now, the second case is Edwards versus Arizona. Once you invoke your right to counsel, police cannot initiate further interrogation unless you have a lawyer present or you voluntarily waived your rights. So Miranda talks about custodial interrogations. Edwards talks about attorney, and if you invoke your right to an attorney, well, then the interrogation must cease. The third case is Illinois versus Perkins. Undercover operations don't trigger Miranda because there is no quote-unquote police-dominated atmosphere, when the suspect thinks he's just talking to fellow inmates. This is the case about Perkins. And then finally we have Rhode Island versus Innis that talks about interrogation. Interrogation is not just words or direct questioning. It is also actions by the police, which they should reasonably know would likely to elicit incriminating response. So which rule applies? Is it Miranda? Is it Perkins? Is it Edwards? Which of these cases apply? The California Court of Appeal ruled that the Zapata's confession was inadmissible, and here's why. The court said this case went beyond a typical Perkins operation. Yes, there were undercover agents, but a known police officer was actively involved in quote-unquote stimulating the conversation. The deputy admitted to this strategy. They had a fake lineup designed to make Mr. Zapata worry and want to talk to other inmates about his crime. The court found that this deputy's action, the fake lineup, the false witness identification, and especially announcing the murder charge in front of the undercover agents, amounted to custodial interrogation. These weren't just passive tactics. They were specifically designed to be reasonably likely to elicit incriminating response. So this is the Innis standard. And here's the kicker. All of this happened after Mr. Zapata invoked his right to counsel. Once Zapata invoked the right to a lawyer and asked for one, Edwards kicked in. Police couldn't resume questioning without either one, providing counsel, or getting a valid waiver. But Zapata never got a lawyer, and he never knowingly and intentionally waived his rights. Instead, he was tricked back into talking through the deputy's coercive tactics. The court said Zapata had no impartial observers to guard against intimidation or trickery when he subsequently incriminated himself. The court found that the error wasn't harmless. Without this confession, the case largely turned on credibility battles between witnesses who gave conflicting testimony. The jury's mixed verdict, not guilty on the first-degree murder, unable to reach a verdict on the firearm enhancement, showed that they were carefully weighing the evidence. The confession was, in the court's words, an evidentiary bombshell. Its admission couldn't be considered harmless beyond a reasonable doubt. So the conviction is reversed and the case is remanded to the lower court for further proceedings. So here's the bigger picture. This case reinforces that constitutional rights can be circumvented through clever police tactics. As the court noted, law enforcement can't place a premium on the ingenuity of the police to devise methods of indirect interrogation, rather than implement the plain mandate of Miranda. So what do you think? Did the court get it right? Do you think this was an overreach during the Perkins operation? Should there be a better bright line rule? Drop your comments below. Let me know what do you think. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, give this video a thumbs up. And if you like this channel, subscribe. If you're listening to the podcast version of this recording on Audible or Spotify, please give my podcast a 5-star rating. And finally, if you want to support this channel, consider going to shop.lawstash.com and check out some of the merch, including the Do Not Arrest This Person t-shirts. Thanks for watching.